Hey, this is a Hakawati production. Michel Zoghzoghi is our guest today on The Men's Room. Michel is an incredible wildlife photographer. His compelling photographs have been sold and exhibited internationally, and he's also published a book called Prey, which is all about animal predators in the wild. And he also runs Dima Healthcare, which sells medical equipment and supplies and is part of the Zoghzoghi Group, a family-owned group of companies. Welcome to The Men's Room, Michel.
Thank you.
So did I say your name right, Zoghzoghi?
Yes.
It's quite a tongue twister.
Well, you get used to it.
But I really like your first name.
Michel.
Yeah.
It's much easier.
Yes. And also, if you and I got married and we lived somewhere where
That would be quite
men took
interesting, actually.
women's last name, you'd be Michel.
Absolutely.
And your life might be a little bit easier.
I'm not sure.
Or not.
On the name part, definitely.
Yeah. So, anyways, you're a photographer.
Yes.
Not by trade, but by choice.
By passion, actually.
By passion. It's kind of interesting to be talking about photography on a podcast, actually, considering, no one can see the images. But so I want to let everyone know that they can see your images on Instagram. Your account is at Michel_Zoghzoghi. And it's worth noting that you already have like 121,000 followers, which is pretty impressive for basically an amateur photographer.
Well, yeah.
Well, how long have you been taking pictures?
I basically fell in love with photography about 14 years ago. I was 40 years old. I was traveling to London to attend a polo game organized by a friend of mine. The plane was late. I bought a camera, and this was the beginning of the love affair.
So you took pictures at that polo game?
Yeah, they were terrible. I thought at the time they were great, but now that I look at them, they're pretty terrible.
What kind of camera was it?
It was a Canon EOS 20. So basically a mid-range camera with a normal lens.
Like a 5 megapixel or something like this?
It was like 10, I think, 8 or 9 actually.
Okay.
But then I just instantly fell in love with it.
And did you start posting your images on Instagram right away?
No. I started Instagram 3 years ago. At the request of my nephews, actually, who said you have to be on Instagram.
Yeah.
So I started my account 3 or 4 years ago, I think.
And how often do you post stuff?
Once a day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big following you have.
Yeah. I mean, it's the whole point of my photography is to spread the message of awareness. So the more people see the photos, the better off I am. I'm basically trying to show what we're losing. The beauty of nature.
Yeah. So I know you go on at least about 3 photography trips per year. Why do you do it? What's your motivation? Tell me about that.
Basically, I love it. It's a pure pleasure. For me, it's the most pleasant things to do. And also, because we are living in a beautiful world that is slowly, becoming not as beautiful. And I want to show people the beauty of the Arctic, the beauty of Africa, the beauty of India, the beauty of all these remote places. And I'm hoping that by seeing the beauty, they will become more aware and they will do something to save it.
What are the things that you've seen on those trips that are worrying you?
I started doing these trips 15 years ago, and between the first time and today, I've seen a huge difference. Differences that are supposed to happen over a course of 100 years happen in the course of 15 years. Less animals, more people, more pollution, more houses, less green space, just basically things are accelerating.
So let's talk a little bit about the book that you published back in 2012. You've published 2. Yeah. There's one in 2012 called Prey.
Exactly.
That's the first one?
Exactly. And the second one I published recently in November. It was actually a fundraising project for an NGO I'm on the board of, which is Animals Lebanon. And it was basically a book on cats and dogs in studio. And all the proceeds of the book went to, specific projects undertaken by Animals Lebanon.
So who's easier to photograph? Wild animals, dogs and cats, or people?
I wouldn't know about people because I'm not a big person.
You never take pictures of people?
I do, but I'm not good at it. I'm much better at, wildlife and animals and at people.
That's interesting, though, because I would imagine that it's hard to direct animals. And
you don't direct them. In studio, yes. The most difficult thing actually is cats in studio. Because you want them to do something, they end up doing the opposite.
So how do you convince them to
just patience, and you bribe them with treats.
Treats.
Yeah, and it was fun actually. It was a very fun process. The whole book on cats and dogs. It was over 120 or 130 photo shoots, and there's 2 books: one on cats, one on dogs.
And what's the name of the book?
Both books are called Catitude and The Unbearable Lightness of Woofing.
Mm.
So
cute.
Yeah.
So, and then Prey was really about wild animals, predator animals.
Yes.
But you kind of had a nice story that went along with the book.
Basically, the predator has become the prey. I know it's a bit cliche, but it's the truth. Because the predators are so beautiful, so pretty, so elegant, they basically become the unfortunate subject of human greed. There's less than 3,000 tigers left in the wild because people want to have a tiger skin in their living room. Or there is some people that believe that tiger teeth and claws have aphrodisiac properties. There's only 7,000 cheetahs left in the world for the same reason, poaching, encroaching on farmer land. Same thing with sharks. We kill, on average, between 75 and 100 million sharks a year, mostly for shark fin soup. Polar bears are endangered because of their loss of habitat, climate change, and all these things. So basically, these animals that are beautiful are gravely endangered. So this is why I focused on them for, it took me 7 years to do the book, actually.
And I know that, like the dog and cat books, the proceeds from the sale of that book went to various organizations.
Exactly. Mainly, actually, the Children's Cancer Center of Lebanon, but also other organizations.
Okay. So you're also obviously very interested in the environment and concerned with the way things are going on the planet. So. Is that something that you think about on a day-to-day basis? And how do you live your life to kind of feel that you're doing things the right way?
I try as much as possible to do the things that we should be doing: recycling, eating less to no meat, not littering, stuff like this. And I try as much as possible to push people around me to do the same. This is on a daily basis. Also, I'm very involved in this NGO called Animals Lebanon to make sure that people don't abuse animals. I do a lot, as much as I can do as an individual, and I'm hoping that other people are starting to do the same.
So when you talk about recycling, okay, that's one thing. You talk about not eating a lot of meat. Are you a vegetarian?
No, I eat meat and chicken and fish, but I'm decreasing it drastically. I don't believe in extremes. I think today we need to take action fast. But it's not by telling people if you eat meat or chicken, you're a murderer, that we're going to get anywhere. We need balance. If people eat meat once every 2 weeks instead of eating 4 times a week, it's a huge victory.
Is that how much you eat?
Meat? No, I've actually cut down much more than this. The last time I had meat was 4 months ago, I think.
Wow.
I eat fish, chicken, and I'm decreasing this drastically as well.
What's wrong with eating meat?
Number of reasons. First, environment. It's estimated that about 15% of climate change is due to the agriculture industry, to basically cows digesting grass, the methane.
You're talking about factory farming, obviously.
Exactly, yes. But this is how we all eat our meat. Also, it's horrible the way these animals are treated. Whether it's here, the US, Europe. I mean, obviously the US and Europe is a bit better, but the way they're put in cramped places and then slaughtered is horrible. And then I just feel better by eating less meat. I mean, I'm not against meat.
What about like wild game?
I think it is actually better to eat wild game than I know it's a bit paradoxical. I mean, controversial, but it's better to eat wild game than to eat farmed animals, provided it's done in a regulated way, because these animals have lived a very nice life. Ideally, I would like to stop meat, fish, and chicken. I'm working towards this. I'm gonna get there, but I'll do it gradually.
What are some of the other things you think our humans can do? I mean, you mentioned that the places you visit now are getting polluted, they're overpopulated. What are some of the things you think that the world needs to change in order to kind of reverse that course?
Well, radically have less kids. But this is, a very unpolitically correct, position. We're 8 billion people today. If we keep on growing, even though the estimates, predict that within the next 10, 15 years, population is going to start decreasing, no matter what we do with, that many individuals, we're bound to create pollution and depletion of resources and stuff like this. So the ideal would be for people to have less kids. Now, being less, more realistic, consume less, use less plastics, do just common sense stuff. I mean, don't go to the grocery store. When you go to the grocery store to buy one item, don't get a plastic bag. Avoid buying an apple cut in 4 pieces and wrapped in a styrofoam thing with plastic on it. It's like common sense stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's the bare minimum. I mean, we could be doing so much more, obviously.
Yeah, of course. I mean, recycling. Like in my company now, we're all recycling. At home, I'm recycling. Driving less and walking more. I mean, we can do a lot of things. But you'd be surprised how little people do. I mean, even the recycling that is basic is not practiced very often in Lebanon.
Why do you think?
I don't know. Probably education.
Yeah.
I think people worldwide are not aware of how bad things will soon become, or how bad. I don't want to sound like the prophet of doom, but things are deteriorating very quickly. To give you an example, I was in the Arctic for 2 weeks in March. I became very good friend with the ship captain. It was an icebreaker, who told me that over the past 20 years, the amount of ice that has melted was catastrophic. And if you read statistics, the Arctic has lost 50% of its ice. This is huge. It's, of course, people are going to tell you, but the ice melting in the Arctic has zero bearing on us living in Lebanon. It's wrong. The whole climate is changing. It's becoming warmer, colder.
What will happen to Lebanon if all that ice melts?
I'm not a climate expert, but I can see that weather patterns are changing everywhere. The tornadoes are stronger. The hurricanes are stronger. It's warmer everywhere. It's even forgetting the weather. Look at nature, the environment, the pollution we're creating. Let's not talk about weather. I'm not a scientist, so I can't really talk about how weather will affect us. But I look around us at the level of pollution we have, the lack of green spaces, the way we're polluting the water, the sea, the forests around us is catastrophic.
Do you feel when you're taking pictures and you're showing the pictures that in a small way, you're just trying to show people like the beauty of this world? Is that kind of how you feel, or is it not exactly connected?
It is connected, but I'm afraid that, and this is a feeling getting more and more, is that the more I show the beauty of the world, the less people will feel the urgency of doing something. Because if you show something beautiful, people won't read the text because people have a tendency of not reading. And they say, oh, that's beautiful, so there's nothing we need to do.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. Or they could be afraid to lose it. But you're right. How do you send that message in a clear way? It's kind of a challenge.
This is my contribution. Of course, in addition to the personal things I do, my contribution is basically showing what we're losing.
Yeah. So, where are you going next? What's your next trip?
I have a small trip for turtle photography in Greece, but mostly I have Uganda in December for gorillas. Probably India for leopards and tigers in March. And I have a month and a half in the Pantanal, which is next to the Amazon in Brazil, for jaguars.
Wow.
So I have 3 trips next year. One of them is a month and a half, a month and 10 days.
Do you ever get frightened when you're photographing these wild animals? Has anything bad ever happened?
Yes, missing a good shot. No, nothing.
I thought you said missing. I thought you were going to say missing a body part.
No, but nothing. Listen, I've gone on over 50 trips, and so far nothing has happened. I've had a couple close calls, but they were mostly my fault. My fault or the guide's fault or
what?
It was human error. Okay, an example. I was in Alaska with a friend of mine, and we were shooting with a camera, obviously, grizzly bears. And we were walking because grizzly bears in this particular part of Alaska are not afraid of humans because they were never hunted. And all of a sudden, we were walking, the wind was blowing from towards us. So the mother bear didn't smell us. She saw us at the last moment. She was hiding behind the bush with a cub. And obviously she became very, very defensive at protecting her cub. And things could have gone a bit hairy here because, we were basically very close to her. She had a cub. But, we just laid on the ground, waited for her to calm down and kept on walking. So stuff like this, nothing major.
Okay. It's funny how people get really afraid of animals, but in reality, you don't really often hear about, wild animal attacks. It's unless in urban settings where, here in California, there are, coyotes and this kind of stuff. But when you go in the wild, you rarely hear about lions attacking.
It's actually mountain lions.
Mountain lions, yes, not
coyote
coyotes.
will not eat you. It's like a small.
They're small, yeah.
Listen, to give some
right.
numbers, put numbers in perspective, we kill, as I said earlier, 100 million sharks a year, and sharks kill on average 7 people a year. So the average over the past 6 years, I think, is 7 people killed a year, and most of the attacks are basically by mistake. The person being attacked doesn't get eaten because the shark, thinks the person is a seal, goes for the person, realizes the mistake and leaves. But, it's too late because a shark bite is lethal very often. So the numbers are very, very, very small. To give you another example, people are afraid of lions and predators. Well, the biggest number of casualties in Africa is due to hippos and buffaloes. Lions kill less than 10 people a year. And again, it's always because of humans encroaching on the lion's territory.
What happens with the buffaloes?
Basically, very often, they're hiding in the bush. Someone walks by, buffalo is afraid, it charges. Or the hippo is the same thing, very territorial.
Yeah.
And basically, they don't kill them to eat them. They just trample them or just, walk over them or something.
Right.
Which is a horrible way to die, but it's not who you expect. It's not the predator. It's not the lion or the tiger or the leopard.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what kind of equipment do you use now?
Canon. Because one of the very important thing about wildlife photography, you don't have time to learn about your equipment while you're in the field. You need to know the equipment by heart. So I learned photography on a Canon camera, and I learned the menu, how it works and everything. So I kept on doing the same thing. And you have the lenses also. They're all so basically Canon.
Do you use like a lot of
yeah,
special lenses?
I have a very long one, a medium one, and a short one. Usually,
Okay.
To be specific, the short one is 100 millimeters, 70 to 200 to be precise. The medium one is 500, and I have a very long one that's 800 millimeter.
And that's all you bring?
With another
the camera.
few, like 3 bodies, and another few smaller lenses. I have usually 40 kilos of equipment.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the lenses are 5 to 7 kilos each, the big ones.
Do you have any formal training?
Formal as in degree, no. But I learned a lot through workshops, reading books, going to exhibitions. But I'm very lucky because I met very early on a very good photographer, and we became very good friends. So he kind of became my mentor for the first 5 years of my photography career, if you want to call it. And then I've been learning alone. Practice.
So how many pictures do you take when you go out on the day? I mean, are you the whole day taking pictures, or basically you have to wait till you see the animals, which is not always
When
obvious?
I first started my trips, I used to take 5,000 photos in a trip and keep about 200. Now on a normal trip, I take no more than 300-400, and I end up with keeping probably 10.
Ah,
So I become much more selective. You know when to shoot, when not to shoot, what time of the day. Usually you have 2 or 3 good hours of flight. And
which
then,
is when?
Which is like 5 in the morning or 5 in the afternoon. So
Okay.
early, sunrise, sunset. During the day, usually don't do anything unless there's like amazing action happening. So I stay out with the animals the whole day. Like in Brazil, for example, for the jaguars, it's by boats. It's on the river. We're most probably going to stay, we stay the whole day on the river. So waiting for something to happen. But usually between 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., nothing happens.
What are you going to see on the river?
Jaguars. Jaguars
Okay.
are on the banks of the river.
The banks
but
of the river.
this time of the year, they actually spend most of the time on the river because it's very hot. They hunt on the river, they drink water, they rest on the river. So they're always on the river. Only when it rains, I love shooting in rain and snow. When there is rain and snow, my shooting hours are extended because you can get amazing light during the day when you have a rainstorm or something.
Why?
Because it's very dramatic.
Okay.
It's I don't know. There's something with the light that becomes beautiful after a big storm.
I guess because it's reflecting the light in a certain
Basically,
way.
and then you have the mud on the ground, and you have the animals going through it, and you have it's more active. And also you have to keep in mind those animals get hot very easily. So when it rains and it's cool, they're more active.
Do you have any thoughts? You obviously love animals.
Yeah,
What do you think about zoos?
it's terrible
Why?
because they're not supposed to be there.
What do you mean they're not supposed
The
to be
animals
there?
are not supposed to be in a zoo. It's
Okay,
like,
but I
why-
guess people who develop, there are some, pretty decent zoos,
know.
especially in the West. And,
course.
I can speak for Houston, where I moved from.
Mm-hmm.
They have some where they really try to recreate the habitat. Obviously, it's not ideal. They would argue that, showing the animals to children and people in the cities kind of, not everyone can go on the trips like you do, obviously.
Not everyone gets healthcare.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but there are other
Yeah.
priorities than showing animals to kids.
Yeah.
And when you show animals to kids in a zoo,
I'm just asking, by the way, that
I
question,
know,
just to
I
see
know,
your
no.
point of view.
When kids see animals in a zoo, it's they have a totally different impression or idea of the animal. They're not supposed to see them there. They're not supposed to be in captivity. I think kids are better off watching a documentary shot in the wild to see how the animals really live than to see an animal in a cage in a zoo. And also many accidents happen where you have a zookeeper getting killed. You have I don't know if you heard about the accident last year where a kid fell in a gorilla enclosure and they had to shoot the gorilla.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, the gorilla didn't ask for anything. He was not even threatening the kid. Just because a responsible parent, let the kid go and walk into an enclosure, the gorilla ends up getting killed. So it's unfair. No, I'm against zoo. I'm against captivity, definitely. Now, this being said, you have certain animals that cannot be reintroduced in the wild. I mean, at Animal Zaban, for example, we rescue animals, even wild animals. These were bred in captivity, will never survive in the wild. So
Which kind of animals are you referring to?
Everything.
What do they have
We've rescued lions, we've rescued tigers. People in Lebanon actually have pets at homes, lions, tigers, and cheetahs.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We actually just closed down, or we're trying to close down a small zoo that has two bears and a lion in horrible conditions. So these will never go back to the wild because they won't survive. And they get sent to sanctuaries or proper zoo. But in general, I'm against the principle of zoo.
So do you volunteer your time at Animals Lebanon?
Yes, I work a lot with them. I'm as a board member, we work, we're basically I help a lot the organization, both, financially through my books and everything, and also in terms of, strategic direction and stuff like this.
So why would people want to have like lions and tigers as pets?
I don't know. Probably ego.
Do they keep them in like outside, inside?
They keep them in cages.
In cages.
It's basically a matter of my lion is bigger than your lion. I mean, it's
ego. Is this like a common thing? I don't know anyone
in
who
many
has a
countries.
Yeah.
The Gulf is very famous for this. South America is very famous for this. Russia was very famous for this. Even the US. In the US, you have a huge number of tigers in private zoo.
Zoos, yes, but not in people's homes.
Zoo.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Private zoo as in people's home.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It's an ego thing. It's they want to own. They want to feel that they own the animal, but they don't, because a tiger in captivity is not a tiger in the wild.
Yeah. So what happens to those when people have those in their house?
They usually die because they don't know how to care for them. These animals are fragile in captivity. They're prone to getting diseases that don't exist in the wild. They're basically in horrible enclosures. So yeah, they end up dying and living horrible lives. So yes, I'm totally against.
Okay.
Captivity, private zoo. I know it's not a perfect world, and an animal is much better off in a big zoo than a small zoo. But ideally, they should not exist.
So what do you do on a day-to-day basis?
For work?
Yeah.
I manage my business.
Right. But I mean, what does that mean? Are you going to an office and very involved? You're selling medical equipment?
Medical equipment, absolutely.
Yeah. So, for example, imaging machines.
Imaging equipment, sutures, stapling, devices,
it's like
endoscopy.
Totally different, right?
Oh, yeah, completely.
Yeah. Do you like it?
I enjoy doing both, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It's fun?
To do both, yeah.
Okay.
It's nice to have some variety.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I enjoy it.
That's good.
It's stressful and everything, and my photography allows me to, take a break from it. And also my work, another also main reason, my work allows me to actually do my photography the way I want to do it, because it finances it.
Right.
So.
But it's part of your family business, right?
Exactly.
Your family's
I started the medical business when I came back to Lebanon in 1994. I was in the US before. I was living in New York. And 93 or 94, I came back and I started a business that basically deals in medical equipment.
And how is that business doing? I mean, it seems like medical business is not really susceptible to all the moods of the economy because people...
It is actually much more than you think, because we sell, but we don't get paid. So it's actually quite stressful.
That's terrible.
It is terrible. But it's the whole...
You need to hire some people
to
take care of that problem.
It won't be taken care of. No, but seriously, it's becoming very, very stressful. So I'm happy I have my photography.
Yeah.
That really allows me to, think about something else.
So your next trip is in...
Uganda in December. Yeah, probably India in March or April.
And do you have any plans with those for those images?
Yes, I have a big exhibition that I'm doing in March, from March 4th to April 4th. It won't be the gorilla images. It's going to be images I already have. And the proceeds of the exhibition will be given to both cancer funds at the UB. One is called the Cancer Support Fund, and the other one is St. Jude.
Where will the exhibition be?
Dar Nimr.
That's here in Beirut?
It's in Beirut, yes.
And what will you be selling? Are they like large prints, small prints? What are you selling?
I have two sizes, and the limited editions of 7.
Okay.
The photos.
What are the sizes?
It really depends on the photos, but roughly the big ones are 1 meter by 1.5 meters, and the small ones are 60 by 90. So,
and are they do you sell them just as a print, or they're framed?
I sell them framed, and they're seven, as I said, 7 copies of each. which is basically the standard today in photography. It's 5 plus 2 artist print, so a total of 7.
Wonderful. Well,
It's fun.
I really love what you're doing.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
With all your trips.
And thank you for the talk.
Well, thank you for stopping by. Thanks for joining us in the men's room. Don't forget to subscribe to our show if you haven't already. And also check us out on hackawadi.com and let us know what you think. See you next time.